Garrison Standard. For I tried property. I tried the rights of property, although in that poker room in the back of the Opera House by lamplight for 30 years. And I say to you, life is a gambler, head and shoulders above us all. No mayor alive can close the house. And if you lose, you can squeal all you like, but you'll not get back your money. He makes the percentage hard to conquer. He stacks the cards to catch your weakness and not to meet your strength. And he gives you 70 years to play. For if you cannot win in 70, you cannot win at all. So when you lose, if you lose, when you lose, get out of the room. Get out of the room when your time is up. It's mean to sit and fumble the cards and curse your losses, leaden-eyed, whining to try and try.
I loathed you, Spoon River. I tried to rise above you. I was ashamed of you. I despised you as the place of my nativity. And there in Rome, among the artists, speaking Italian, speaking French, I seemed to myself at times to be free of every trace of my origin. I seemed to be breathing the air that the masters breathed, to be reaching the heights of art, and to see the world with their eyes. But still they pass my work and say, "What are you driving at, my friend?" Sometimes the face looks like Apollo's, at others it has a trace of Lincoln's. There was no culture, you know, in Spoon River. And I burned with shame and held my peace, and what could I do? All covered over and weighted down with western soil, except aspire and pray for another birth in the world with all of Spoon River rooted out of my soul.
My parents thought that I would be as great as Edison, or greater. For as a boy, I made balloons and exquisite frames and toys with clocks and little engines with their own tracks and telephones of cans and thread. I played the cornet, I painted pictures, I modeled in clay, and I played the villain in the octoroon. But at 21, I married and had to live. And so to live, I learned the trade of making watches and started a jewelry shop in the village. Thinking. Not a business, but of the engine that I would build with the calculus I had learned. The people of Spoon River, they watched and waited to see if it would work. It didn't. Some kind hearts believed that my genius was somehow hampered by this store. It wasn't true. The truth was, I didn't have the brains.
If only the excursion train to Peoria had just been wrecked, I would have escaped with my life. Certainly, I should have escaped this place. But as it was burned as well, they mistook me for John Allen, who was sent to Hebrew Cemetery in Chicago. And John for me. So I like it. It was bad enough to run a clothing store in this town, but to be buried here?
When I first came to Spoon River, I didn't know whether what they told me was true or false. They would bring me the epitaph and stand around the shop while I worked and say, "He was so kind. He was wonderful. She was the sweetest woman. He was a consistent Christian." And I chiseled for them whatever they wished, all in ignorance of its truth. But later, as I lived among the people here, I knew how near to the life were the epitaphs that were ordered for them as they died. But still I chiseled whatever they paid me to chisel, and made myself party to the false chronicles of the stones, even as the historian does, who writes without knowing the truth, or because he is influenced to hide it. Where are Ella, Kate, Mag, Lizzie, and Edith? The tender heart, the simple soul, the loud, the proud, the happy one. All are sleeping on the hill. One died in shameful childbirth, one of a thwarted love. One at the hands of a brute in a brothel, one of a broken pride in the search for heart's desire. One after life in faraway London and Paris was brought to her little space by Ella and Kate and Mag. All are sleeping, sleeping, sleeping on the hill.
I was the milliner, talked about, lied about, mother adored, whose strange disappearance was charged to her hearing. My eye quick to beauty, I saw much besides ribbons and buckles and feathers, and leghorns and felts to set off sweet faces, and dark hair and gold. There is only one thing I will tell you, and one I will ask. The stealers of husbands wear powder and trinkets and fashionable hats. Wives, wear them yourselves. Tax may make divorces. They also prevent them. Well now, let me ask you. If all the children born here in Spoon River were reared up by the county, somewhere on a farm, and their fathers and mothers were given the freedom to live and enjoy and to change partner as they wish, do you think Spoon River had been any the worse?
When Reuben Pantier ran off and threw me, I went to Springfield. There I met a lush whose father, just deceased, had left him a fortune. He married me while drunk. My life was wretched. A year passed, and then one day they found him dead. That made me rich. I moved on to Chicago. After a time met Tyler Roundtree, villain. I moved on to New York. A gray-haired magnate went mad about me. So, another fortune. He died one night, right in my arms, you know. His purple face I saw for years thereafter. There was almost a scandal. I moved on. This time, to Poppy. I was now a woman. Insidious, subtle, versed in the ways of the world and rich. My sweet apartment near the Champs-Élysées became a center for all sorts of people. Musicians, poets, dandies, artists, nobles, where we spoke French and Italian, German, English. I wed Count Navigato. We went to Rome. he poisoned me, I think. Oh, well, now in the Campo Santo, where young Columbus dreamed new worlds, see what they've chiseled there. Contessa navigator, implora aeterna quiet.
I would have been as great as George Eliot, but for an untoward fate. For look at this photograph of me made by Pennywit, chin resting on hand and deep-set eyes, grey too and far-searching. But there was the old problem. Should it be celibacy, matrimony, or unchastity? Then John Slack, the rich druggist, wooed me, luring me with the promise of leisure for my novel. And I married him, and had no time to write, because I gave him 8 children. It was all over with me anyway when I ran the needle in my hand while washing the baby's things. And died from lockjaw, an ironical death. Hear me, ambitious soul, sex is the curse of life.
Here.
And first I was sick, and then I was mad at the crooked police and this crooked game called life. So I wrote the chief of police in Peoria, and I said, I'm here in my girlhood home, in Spoon River, gradually wasting away. I killed a man. I killed the son of a merchant prince at Madame Lou's.
Papers.
Oh yeah, the paper said that he killed himself while at home, while cleaning a hunting gun. Lied like the devil to hush up scandal and the bribe of advertising. I shot him in my room at Madame Lou's after he knocked me down when I said I didn't care how much money he had. I would see my lover that night.
I, born in Weimar, of a mother who was French, and a German father, a most learned professor. Orphaned at 14, became a dancer, known as Russian Sonia. All known up and down the boulevards of Paris. Mistress betimes with sundry dukes and counts, and later of pure poets and artists. At 40 years passé, I thought New York, and met old Patrick Hammer on the boat. Red-faced and hale, though turned his 60s year, returning after having sold a shipload of cattle in the German city Hamburg. He brought me to Spoon River, and we lived here for 20 years, and they thought we were married. This oak tree near me is the favorite haunt of blue jays chattering and chattering all day. And why not? For my very dust is laughing, for thinking of the humorous thing called life.
We're Uncle Isaac and Aunt Emily, and old Townie Kincaid, Sivine Horton, and Faith Maheny, and Major Walker, who had talked with venerable men of the Revolution. All are sleeping on the hill. They brought them dead sons from the war, and daughters whom life had crushed, and their children fatherless, crying. All are sleeping, sleeping, sleeping on the hill.
They got me into the Sunday school in a Spoon River and tried to get me to drop Jesus for Confucius. I could have been no worse off if I had tried to get them to drop Jesus for Confucius. For without any warning, as if it were a prank, and sneaking up behind me, Harry Wiley, the minister's son, cleaved my ribs into my runs with a blow of his fist. Now, I shall never sleep with my ancestors in Beijing, and no children shall worship at my grave.
Well, don't you see this was the way of it? We bought the farm with what he inherited, and his brothers and sisters accused him of poisoning his father's mind against the rest of them. And we never had any peace with our treasure. The murrain took the cattle, and the crops failed, and lightning struck the granary. So we mortgaged the farm to keep going. And he grew silent and was worried all the time. Then the neighbors refused to speak to us. And I had nowhere left to turn. As one may say to himself at an earlier time in life, no matter, so-and-so is my friend, or I can shake it off with a little trip to Decatur. Then the dreadfulest of smells infested the rooms. So I set fire to the beds, and the whole witch house went up in a roar of flame, while I danced in the yard with waving arms, and he wept like a freezing steer.
I have studied many times the marble which was chiseled for me. A boat with a furled sail at rest in a harbor. In truth, it pictures not my destination, but my life. For love was offered me, and I shrank from its disillusionment. Sorrow knocked at my door, but I was afraid. Ambition called to me, but I dreaded the chances. Yet all the while, I hungered for meaning in my life. And now I know that we must lift the sail and catch the winds of destiny, wherever they drive the boat. To put meaning in one's life may end in madness, but life without meaning is torture, or restlessness and vague desire. It is a boat, longing for the sea, yet afraid.
Almost the shell of a woman after the surgeon's knife. And almost a year to creep back to strength again, till the dawn of our wedding decennial found me my seeming self again. We walked the forest together by a path of soundless moss and turf, but I could not look in your eyes, and you could not look in my eyes, for such sorrow was ours. The beginning of gray in your hair, and I but a shell of myself. And what did we talk of? Sky and water, anything most to hide our thoughts. And then your gift of wild roses set on our table to grace our dinner. Poor heart. How bravely you struggled to imagine and live a remembered rapture. Then my spirit drooped as the night came on, and you left me in my room for a while, as you did when I was a bride. Poor heart. And I looked in the mirror, and something said, one should be all dead when one is half dead, nor ever mock life. did it. Looking there in the mirror. Dear, have you ever understood?
You is a pitfall outside of yourself, around which you may walk by the use of foresight and wisdom. Thus you believe, viewing the lives of other men as one who in godlike fashion bends over an anthill, seeing how their difficulties could be avoided. But pass on into life. In time, you shall see fate approach you in the shape of your own image in the mirror. Or you shall sit alone by your own hearth, and suddenly the chair by you shall hold a guest. And you shall know that guest, and read the authentic message of his eyes.
At first, you will know not what they mean, these sudden flashes in your soul. And we may never tell you, and you may never know. They come in solitude, like lambent lightning on snowy clouds at midnight when the moon is full. Or you sit with your friend and all at once a silence falls on speech, and his eyes without a flicker glow at you. You two have seen the secret together. He sees it in you, and you in him. And there you sit, thrilling lest the sight, lest the mystery stand before you and strike you dead like with a splendor like the sun's. Be brave, ye souls who have such visions. As your body's alive as well as mine is dead, you're catching a little whiff of the ether reserved for God himself.
Where is old Fiddler Jones, who played with life all his 90 years, braving the sleet with bared breast, drinking, rioting, thinking, neither of wife nor kin, nor gold, nor love, nor heaven. Lo, he babbles of the fish fries of long ago, of the horse races of long ago at Clary's Grove, of what Abe Lincoln said one time at Springfield. All are sleeping, sleeping, sleeping on the hill. William and Emily.
There is something about that.
Like love itself.
With someone with whom you have no passion.
And the glow of youthful love.
You also
After years of life together.
feel the sinking of the fire.
And thus fade away together.
Faintly,
Delicately.
as it join each other's arms.
Passing from the familiar room.
That is the power of unison,
Between souls.
like love itself.
Fiddler Jones.
The earth has a vibration of its own. And that is the heart. It is you. And if people find you fiddle, then fiddle you must for all of your life. What do you see? A harvest? A meadow to walk through? To the river? The wind is in the corn, and your fingers are rubbing through the beeves that hereafter will go to harvest. Or else you hear this rustle of skirts while the girls were dancing at Little Grove. Cocoon or potty? A pillar of dust or whirling leaves meant a ruinous drought. They look to me like redhead Sammy stepping it off to Tooraloo. But how could I till my 40 acres, nor have a hope of getting more, with a medley of horns and bassoons and piccolos circulating in my brain from robins and crows and the creak of a windmill, even these. And I never began to plow a day in my life with someone not standing in the road and taking me away to a picnic or dance. I ended up with 40 acres. I ended up with a broken fiddle and a broken laugh and 1,000 memories and not one single regret.
Lucius Atherton.
When my mustache curled and my hair was black and I wore tight trousers and a diamond stud, I was an excellent knave of hearts and took many a trick. But when the gray hairs began to appear, there was a whole generation of girls who laughed at me, not fearing me. And I had no more exciting adventures, wherein I was all but shot for a heartless devil, but only drabby affairs, leftover affairs of other days and other men. Time went on until I was living at Mayor's Restaurant, partaking of short orders. A gray, untidy, toothless, discarded, rural Don Juan. There's a mighty shade here who sings of one named Beatrice. And I see now that the force that made him great drove me to the dregs of life.
Mrs. Kessler.
Mr. Kessler, you know, was in the army. and he drew $6 a month as pension, and stood on the corner talking politics, or sat at home reading Ron's memoirs, and I supported the family by washing, learning the secrets of all the people, from their curtains, counterpanes, shirts and skirts, for things that are new grow old at length. Line. They're replaced with better or none at all. People are prospering or falling back. Rents and patches widen with time. No thread or needle can paste decay. And there are stains that baffle soap. And there are colours that run in spite of you, blamed though you are for spoiling a dress. Curtains, handkerchiefs, napery have their secrets. The laundress life knows all about it. And I, who went to all the funerals held in Spoon River, swear I never saw a dead face without thinking that it looked like something washed and ironed.
Nellie Clark.
I was only 8 years old, and before I grew up and knew what it meant, I only knew that I was frightened, and that I told my mother, and that father got a pistol and would have killed Charlie, who was a big boy, 15 years old, except for his mother. Nevertheless, the story clung to me. But the man who married me, a widower of 35, was a newcomer, and so I'd never heard it. Until 2 years after we were married. Then he considered himself cheated. And the village agreed that I was not really a virgin. Well, he deserted me, and I died that following winter.
Judge Seela Lively.
Suppose you stood just 5'2" and had worked your way as a grocery clerk, studying law by candlelight until you became an attorney at law. And then suppose, through your diligence and regular church attendance, you became attorney for Thomas Rose, collecting notes and mortgages and representing all the widows in the probate court. And through it all, they jeered at your size, laughed at your clothes and your polished boots. And then suppose you became the county judge, and Jefferson Harmon, and Kinsey Keene, and Mr. Whitney, and all the giants who had sneered at you were forced to stand before the bar and say, "Your Honor, well." Don't you think it was natural that I made it hard for them?
Circe Foot.
Sorry. I thought there would be some peace in that. But I did die with a smile upon my face. You see, I wanted to go away to college, but rich Aunt Bessie's wouldn't help me. So I made the gardens, I raked the lawns, I bought John Alden's book with my earnings, and toiled for the very means of life. I wanted to marry Delia Prickett, but how could I, with what I earned? And there was Aunt Persis, more than 70, half dead, sitting in her wheelchair, with her throat so paralyzed that when she drank, the soups swam out of her mouth like a duck. A gourmand, yet investing in mortgages and fretting all the time about the rent and papers and stuff. That day I was sewing wood for her and reading Proudhon in between. I went into the house for a drink of water. And there she was, asleep on that chair, with Proudhon lying next to her, and a bottle of chloroform that she used sometimes for her aching tooth. I poured some of it on my handkerchief and pressed it to her nose till she died. Oh, Delia, you and Prudent steadied my hand. And the coroner, she said she died of heart failure. I married Delia and got the money. The joke on you, Spoon River.
Reverend Riley advised me not to divorce him, for the sake of the children. And Judge Summers advised him the same. So we stuck to the end of the path. But 2 of the children thought he was right, and 2 of the children thought I was right, and the 2 who sided with him blamed me, and the 2 who sided with me blamed him. And all were torn with the guilt of judging and tortured in soul, for they could not admire equally him and me. Now every gardener knows that plants grown in cellars or under stones are twisted and yellow and weak. And no mother would let her baby suck diseased milk from her breast. Yet preachers and judges advise the raising of souls where there is no sunlight, but only twilight. No warmth, but only dampness and cold. Preachers and judges.
Amos Sibley and Mrs. Sibley.
The secret of the soil, to receive the seed. The secret of the seed, the germ. The secret of man, the sower. The secret of woman, the secret of
I loathed her as a termagant, as a wanton. I knew of her adulteries, every one. But even so, if I divorce the woman, I must forsake the ministry. Therefore, to do God's work and have a crop, I bore with her. So lied I to myself, so lied I to Spoon River. Yet I tried lecturing, ran for the legislature, canvassed for books with just the thought in mind, if I make money thus, I will divorce her.
Alexander Throckmorton.
In youth, my wings were strong and tireless, but I couldn't see the mountains. In age, I saw the mountains, but my tired wings could not follow my visions. Genius is wisdom and age.
There she is, ain't she sweet? Ain't she sweet? See her coming down the street. Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Oh brother, ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice. Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she nice? Casting an eye in her direction. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? I repeat, don't you think that's kind of neat? And ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Yes, sir, that's my baby. No, sir, don't be maybe. Yes, sir, that's my baby now. Sweet cookie, yes, ma'am, we decided. No, ma'am, we won't hide it. Yes, ma'am, you're invited now. Yes, but now, by the way, when we reach the preacher, I'll say, here's that wedding ring. Yes, sir, that's my baby. No, sir, don't mean maybe. Ain't you nice? That's my baby now. sir, yes, sir, don't mean maybe, that's my baby. Ain't she sweet? Amanda Barker.
Henry got me with child, knowing that I could not bring forth life without losing my own. In my youth, therefore, I entered the portals of lust. Traveler, it is believed in the village where I live that Henry loved me with a husband's love, that I proclaim from the dust he slew me to gratify his hatred.
Tom Merritt and Mrs. Merritt.
At first, I suspected something. She acted so calm and absent-minded, and one day, I heard the back door shut as I entered the front, and I saw him slink back of the smokehouse in the lot and run across the field, and I meant to kill him on sight. But that day, walking near Fourth Bridge, without a stick or a stone in hand, all of a sudden I saw him standing, scared to death, holding his rabbits, and all I could say was, "Don't! Don't! Don't!" as he aimed and fired at my heart.
Silent before the jury, returning no word to the judge when he asked me if I ought to stay against the sentence, only shaking my head. What could I say to the people who thought that a woman of 35 was at fault when her lover of 19 killed her husband? Even though she said over and over again, "Go away, Elmer, go far away. I have maddened your brain with the gift of my body. You will do some terrible thing." And just as I feared, he killed my husband, with which I had nothing to do before God. Silent for 30 years in prison. And the iron gates of Joliet swung as the gray and silent trustees carried me out in a coffin.
Willard Fluke and Lois Spears.
My wife lost her health and dwindled until she weighed scarce 90 pounds. And then that woman, whom the men styled Cleopatra, came along. And we married ones, all broke our vows, myself among the rest. Years passed, and one by one, death carried them off in some hideous form. And I felt borne along by God's particular grace for me. And I began to write reams on reams of God, of God's particular grace and of the second coming of Christ. And Christ came to me, and he said, "Go into the church and stand before the congregation and confess your sin." But as I stood and began to speak, I saw my little girl who was sitting in the front row. My little girl who was born blind. After that, all was darkness.
Here lies the body of Lois Spears, born Lois Fluke, daughter of Willard Fluke, wife of Cyrus Spears, mother of Myrtle and Virgil Spears, children with clear eyes and sound limbs. I was born blind. I was the happiest of women, as a wife, mother, and housekeeper, caring for my loved ones, and making my home a place of order and bounteous hospitality. For I went about the rooms and about the gardens with a sense as sure as sight, as though there were eyes in my fingertips. Glory to God in the highest.
Deacon Taylor.
I was a member of the church and a member of the party of prohibition. And the villagers thought I died from eating watermelon. In truth, I had cirrhosis of the liver. For every noon, for 30 years, I slipped behind the partition of Trainer's drugstore and poured myself a generous drink from the bottle marked Spiritus Fromecti.
Silas Dement.
It was moonlight, and the earth sparkled with new fallen frost. It was midnight, and not a soul was abroad. I carried a ladder to the landing of the stairs, and leaned it against the frame of the trapdoor. Out of the chimney of the courthouse, a grey hound of smoke leapt and chased the northwest wind. I crawled under the wooden roof and amid the rafters, and flung among those seasoned timbers a light-foot handful of oil-soaked waste. I then came down and slunk away. In a while, the fire bell rang, clang, 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 and the Spoon River Ladder Company came with a dozen buckets and began to pour water on the glorious bonfire, growing hotter and higher and brighter, till the walls caved in. And those columns on which Lincoln stood, they crashed like trees when the woodman fell dead. When I came back from Joliet, there was a new courthouse with a dome. For I was punished, like all who destroy the past for the sake of the future.
Down our way, both night and day, you know everybody and they all know you, and even policemen say, how do you do? Pals by the score and gals galore, and that old gang of mine, we sang, sweet Adeline, down our way, down our way. Gee, but I wish that I could wander through fields of clover and new mown hay, and go strolling down the dusty country road amid the beautiful flowers that bloom in May. And on Saturday night we go courting with your girl beneath the bright silvery moon. And on the way to church on Sunday mornings people say, how do you do? I'd like to sit once more and spin a yarn with all the boys down at the corner grocery store. I can almost see the good luck portion hanging up above the village smithy's door. And that old gang of mine, they sang, sweet Adeline. How'd you like to come along with me on the way?
stone, mid gardens and walks. Workmen about the place, on guard, upheld from the county and the state for their lordly owner, full of pride. I was so hungry, I had a vision. I saw a giant scissors dip from the sky like the beam of a dredge and cut that house in two like a curtain. That's a commercial. That's a commercial. I saw a man. He winked at me when I asked him for work. It was Wash McNeely's son. He proved to be the chain in the link of title to half the ownership of the house through a breach of promise suit, the scissors. So you see, from the time I was born, this house had just been waiting for me.
Hortensia Robbins.
My name used to be in the paper stating for having dined somewhere, or traveled somewhere, or rented a house in Paris where I entertained the nobility. I was forever eating or traveling, or taking a cure at Baden-Baden. Now I am here to Spoon River, and here beside the family whence I sprang. No one cares now where I lived, or dined, or whom I entertained, or how often I took a cure at Baden-Baden.
Franca Drummer.
Out of a cell to this darkened space. The end. At 25, my tongue could not speak what stirred within me. And the village thought me a fool. And yet, at the start, there was a clear vision, a high and urgent purpose in my soul, which drove me on trying to memorize the Britannica Encyclopedia.
Wallace Ferguson.
There, at Geneva, where Mont Blanc floated above, the wine-hued lake like a cloud, when a breeze was blown out of an empty sky of blue, and the rowing Rome hurried under the bridge, through champs of rock, and the music along the cafes was part of the splendor of dancing water under a torrent of light. And the purer part of the genius of Jean Rousseau was the silent music of all we saw or heard. There at Geneva, I say, was the raptureless, because I could not link myself with the eye of yore. When 20 years before, I wondered about Spoon River, nor remember who I was or how I felt. We live in the hour all free of the hours gone by. Therefore, also, if you lose yourself in death and awaken in some Geneva, what do you care if you know not yourself as the you who lived and loved in a little corner of the earth known as Spoon River, ages and ages back?
Benjamin Pantier and Mrs. Pantier.
Together in this grave, lie Benjamin Pantier, attorney at law, and Nig, his dog, constant companion, solace, and friend. Down the gray road, friends, children, men, women, passing one by one out of life, left me alone with Nig as partner, bedfellow, comrade in drink. In the morning of life, I knew ambition and saw glory. Then, she who survives me snared my soul with a snare that bled me to death until I, once strong of will, lay broken, indifferent, living with Nig in a room back of a dingy office.
I know, he told you. I snared his soul with a snare that bled him to death. And that all the men loved him and most of the women pitied him. But suppose you are really a lady, and you have delicate tastes, and loathe the smell of whiskey and onions, and the rhythm of Wordsworth's ode runs through your ears, while he goes about from morning till night repeating bits of that common thing. Oh, why should the mortal soul of man be proud? And then suppose you are a woman well endowed, and the only man with whom the law and morality permit you to have the marital relation is the very man that fills you with disgust. Every time you think of it, while you think of it, every time you look at him. That is why I drove him away from home to live with his dog in a dingy room back of his office.
Under my jawbone rests the bony nose of Nig. Our story is lost in silence. Go by, mad world.
Emily Sparks and Reuben Pantier.
Where's my boy? My boy, in what far part of the world? The boy I left best of all in the school. I, the teacher, the old maid, the virgin heart, who made them all my children. Did I know my boy right? Thinking of him as a spirit aflame, active, ever aspiring?
Well, Emily Sparks, your prayers were not wasted. Your love was not all in vain. I owe whatever I was in life to your hope that would not give me up, to your love that saw me still as good. Dear Emily Sparks, let me tell you the story. I passed the effect of my father and mother. The milliner's daughter made me trouble. And out I went in the world where I passed through every peril known of wine and women and joy of life. One night, in a room in the Rue de Rivoli, I was drinking wine with a black-eyed cuckold, and the tears swam into my eyes. She thought they were amorous tears and smiled for thought of her conquest over me, but my soul was 3,000 miles away in the days when you taught me in Spoon River. Just because you no more could love me, nor pray for me, nor write me letters, the eternal silence of you spoke instead. And the black-eyed cuckold took the tears for hers, as well as the deceiving kisses I gave her. Somehow, from that hour, I had a new vision. Dear Emily Sparks.
Boy, for whom I prayed and prayed in many a watchful hour at night. Do you remember the letter I wrote to you of the beautiful love of Christ?
whether you ever took it or not, my boy, wherever you are, work for your soul's sake, that all of the clay of you, all of the dross of you may yield to the fire of you, till the fire is nothing but light, nothing but light.
80 blood.
If you in the village think that my work was a good one, who closed the saloons and stopped all playing at cards, and hailed Daisy Fraser up before Justice Arnett, in many a crusade to purge the people of sin, why do you allow the milliner's daughter, Dora, and that worthless son of Benjamin Pantier nightly to make my grave their unholy pillow?
Heart of my heart, I love you. Life would be naught without you. Light of my life, my darling, I love you. I love you. I can forget you never. From you I ne'er can sever. Say you'll be mine forever. I love you.
She loved me. Oh, how she loved me. I never had a chance to escape from the day she first saw me. But then, after we were married, I thought she would prove her mortality and let me out. Or maybe just divorce me. But few die, none resign. So I ran away. Was gone for away for a year on a lark. But she never complained. She said all would be well and I would return. I did return. I told her one day while taking a row in a boat, I was captured near Van Buren Street by pirates on Lake Michigan. And then I was kept in chains, sure enough right to her. She cried and kissed me, said it was cruel, inhuman, outrageous. I then concluded our marriage was a divine dispensation that could never be dissolved. Unless, of course, by death. I was right.
Mrs. Perkerpile.
He ran away and was gone for a year. And when he came home, he told me the silly story of being captured by pirates on Lake Michigan and kept in chains so he couldn't write me. I pretended to believe it, though I knew very well what he was doing and that he met the milliner, Mrs. Williams. Now and then when she went to the city to buy goods, as she said. But a promise is a promise. And marriage is marriage. And out of respect for my own character, I refused to be drawn into a divorce by the scheme of a husband who had merely grown tired of his marital vow and duty.
Flossie Cabanis.
From Bengal's Opera House in the village to Broadway is a great step, but I tried to take it when 16 years of age. My ambition fired seeing East Lynn played here in the village with Ralph Barrett, the coming romantic actor who enthralled my soul. True, I trailed back home, a broken failure, when Ralph disappeared in New York, leaving me alone in the city. But life broke him also. In all this place of silence, there are no kindred spirits. Oh, how I wish Tuesday could stand amid the silence, the pathos of these quiet fields, and read these words.
Millie Metcalf.
I was Millie Metcalf. Some people called me Dr. Myers because they said I looked like him. And he was my father, according to Jack McGuire. I lived in the livery stable, sleeping side by side with Roger Badman's dog, or sometimes in a stall. I used to crawl between the legs of the wildest horses without getting kicked. We knew each other. On spring days, I would tramp through the country just to get the feeling, which I sometimes lost, that I was not a separate thing from the earth. And I would lay in the woods with my eyes half open, as if in sleep. Sometimes I would talk to animals, even toads and snakes, anything that had an eye to look into. Once, I saw a stone in the sunshine trying to turn to jelly. And on April days, in this very cemetery, the dead would gather all about me and grow silent, like a congregation in silent prayer. I was never sure whether I was part of the earth with flowers growing in me, or whether I walked. I guess now I know.
Franklin Jones.
If I could have lived another year, I would have finished my flying machine and become rich and famous. Hence, it was only fitting that when the workmen tried to chisel a dove for me, it looked like a chicken. For what is it but we're hatching and running about the yard until the day of the block, save for man, with the brains of angels, can see the axe from the first.
Mabel Osborne.
Your red blossoms amid green leaves are drooping, beautiful geranium. But you do not ask for water. You cannot speak. You do not need to speak. Everyone knows you're dying of thirst. But they don't bring you water. They pass on saying, the geranium wants water. And I, who had happiness to share and longed to share your happiness, I who loved you, Spoon River, and craved your love, withered before you, Spoon River, thirsting, voiceless from the chasteness of soul, to ask for your love. You, who knew and saw me perish before you, like this geranium which someone planted above me. left to die.
The village atheist.
Ye young debaters of the doctrine of the soul's immortality, I, who lie here, was the village atheist, talkative, contentious, versed in the arguments of the infidels. But through a long sickness, coughing myself to death, I read the Upanishads and the poetry of Jesus, and they lighted a torch of hope, intuition, and desire that the shadow leading me swiftly through the dark caverns could not extinguish. Listen to me, all ye who live in the senses and who think through the senses only. Immortality is not a gift. Immortality is an achievement, and only those who strive mightily shall possess it.
Ollie McGee.
Have you seen walking through the village a man with downcast eyes and haggard face? That is my husband, who by secret cruelty, never to be told, robbed me of my youth and my beauty. Till at last, wrinkled and with yellow teeth, I sank into the grave. And what think you gnaws at my husband's heart? The face of what I was. The face of what he made me. That is what's driving him to the place where I lie, in death. Therefore, I am avenged.
Fletcher McGee.
She took my strength by the minute, she took my life by the hour, she drained me like a fevered moon that saps the spinning wood. The night flew by like stars, the day went by like shadows. She took the pity from my heart and made it into spice. She was a hunk of sculptor's clay. My secret plots were fingers that flew behind her pensive brow and lined it deep with pain. They set the lips, they sagged the cheeks, and they drooped the eyes with sorrow. My soul had entered the clay. Fighting like seven devils, it was not hers, it was not mine. She held it, but its struggles modeled the face she hated. A face I could not bear to see. I beat the windows, I shook the bolts, I hid me in a corner. And then she died and haunted me. For life.
That night alone, on our way home, you turned and said to me, I love you so, and I
the bank and the courthouse circle for pocketing interest from the public funds. And do you remember when I fought the leading citizens for making the poor the pack horse of the taxes?
Yeah.
And do you remember when I fought the businessmen for fighting me when I fought? Do you remember?
I was a peasant girl from Germany, rosy, blue-eyed, happy and strong. And the first place I worked at was it Thomas Green. One summer day, when she was away, he stole into the kitchen. He took me right in his arms, kissed me on my throat, I turning my head. Then neither of us seemed to know what happened. And I cried. And I cried. Oh, what would become of me? And I cried as my secret began to show. Miss Green said she understood, and she would make no trouble for me, and she would adopt it, being childless. He gave her a farm to be still, and everything went well, and a child was born. She hid in the house and sent it out rumors, as if it was going to happen to her. They were so kind to me.
I was the only child of Francis Harris of Virginia and Thomas Green of Kentucky, of valiant and honorable blood both. To them I owe all that I became. Judge, member of Congress, leader in the state. From my mother, I inherited vivacity, fancy, language. From my father, will, judgment, logic. All honor to them for the service I was to the people.
Later, I married Gus Bergman, and years passed. But at political rallies, when such a spy thought I was crying the eloquence of Hamilton Green, that was not it. No. I wanted to say, that's my son! That's my son!
You would not believe, would you, that I came from good Welsh stock? That I was purer-blooded than the white trash here? And of more direct lineage than the New Englanders and Virginians of Spoon River? You would not believe that I'd been to school and read some books? You saw me only as a run-down man with matted hair and beard and ragged clothes. Sometimes a man's life turns into a cancer from being bruised and continually bruised, and swells into a purplish mass like growths on stalks of corn. Here was I, carpenter, mired in a bog of life, into which I walked thinking it was a meadow, with a slattern for a wife, and poor Minerva, my daughter, whom you tormented and drove to death. So I crept like a snail through the days of my life. No more you hear my footsteps in the morning, resounding on the hollow sidewalk, going to the grocery store for a little corn meal and a nickel's worth of bacon.
village poetess, hooted at and jeered at by the yahoos of the street for my heavy body, cockeyed and rolling gait. All the more once Butch Weldy captured me after a brutal hunt. He left me to my fate with Dr. Myers, and I sank to my death, growing numb from the feet up, like one stepping deeper and deeper into a stream of ice. Will someone go to the village newspapers and gather into book the verses I wrote? I thirsted so for love. I hungered so for life.
Dr. Myers.
No other man, except for maybe Doc Hill, did more for the people in this town than I. And all the halt, the weak, the improvident, and all those who could not pay flocked to me. I was good-hearted, easy Dr. Myers. I was happy, healthy, and in comfortable fortune. Blessed with a congenial mate, children all grown, all wedded and doing well in the world. And then one night, Minerva, the poetess, came to me in her hour of need. I tried to help her. She died. They indicted me. The newspapers disgraced me. My wife, she died of a broken heart. Then pneumonia finished me.
Eugene Carmen.
Rhodes' slave, selling shoes and gingham, flour and bacon, overalls, clothing, all day long for 14 hours a day for 313 days for more than 20 years, saying yes'm and yes sir and thank you 1,000 times a day, and all for $50 a month, living in this stinking room in the Rattlecat commercial and compelled to go to Sunday school and listen to the Reverend Abner Peet 104 times a year for more than an hour at a time because Thomas Rhodes ran the church as well as the store and the bank. So, while I was tying my necktie that morning, I suddenly saw myself in the glass, my hair all gray, my face like a sodden pie. So I cursed and cursed, "You damned old thing, you cowardly dog, you rotten pauper, you Rhodes' slave." Till Roger Boutman thought I was having a fight with someone and looked through the transom just in time to see me fall on the floor in a heap from a broken vein in my head.
Enoch Dunlap.
How many times during the last 20 years I was your leader, Spoon River friends, that you neglected the caucuses and conventions and left me the burden of guarding and protecting your social cause. Sometimes it was because you were ill, or sometimes your grandmother was ill, or you drank too much and fell asleep, or else you said, "He is our leader. All is well. He fights for us. We but need to follow him." So, how was it that I was cursed so for leaving the caucus room for a moment? You cursed me and said that I had betrayed you, leaving you to your enemies, there gathered to destroy the sacred rights of the people. You common rabble! I only left the caucus room to go to the urinal.
Lillian Stewart.
I was the daughter of Lambert Hutchins, born in a cottage near the grist mill, bred in the mansion there on the hill, with its spires, bay window, and roof of slate. How proud my mother was of the mansion, how proud of father's rise in the world, and how my father loved and watched us, and guarded our happiness. But I believe the house was a curse, for father's fortune was little decided, and when my husband found he had married a girl who was really poor, he taunted me with the spires and called the house a fraud on the world, a treacherous lure to young men rising hopes of a dowry not to be had. And a man, while selling his vote, should get enough from people's betrayal to wall the whole of his family in. He vexed my life till I went back home, and lived like an old maid till I died, keeping house for father.
Lucinda Matlock.
I went to the dances in Chandlerville, played snap out at Winchester. One time we changed partners, driving home in the moonlight of middle June. And then I met Davis. We were married and lived together for 70 years, enjoying, working, raising the 12 children, 8 of whom we lost. Ere I had reached the age of 60, I spun, I wove, I kept the house, I nursed the sick, I made the garden, and for holiday, rambled over the fields where sang the lark. And by Spoon River, gathering many a shell and many a flower and medicinal weed, shouting to the green hillsides, singing to the green valleys. At 96, I had lived enough. That is all. What's this I hear of sorrow, weariness, anger, discontent, and drooping hopes? Degenerate sons and daughters, life is too strong for you. It takes life to love life.
Davina Matlock.
Suppose it is nothing but a hive, but there are drones and workers and queens and nothing but storing honey for the next generation. This generation never lived, except for when it swarms in the sunlight of youth, strengthening its wings from what it has gathered, and tasting on the way to the hive from the clover field the sweet, delicate soil. Suppose all this, and suppose the truth, is that the nature's need in man is greater than the nature's need in the hive, and that you must bear the burden of life along with the spirit of this excess. Well, I say live it like a god, sure of immortal life, though in doubt is the way to live it. If God isn't proud of you for that, then God is nothing but gravitation or sleep. It's the golden goal.
Schofield Huxley.
God, ask us not to record your wonders. We admit the sun, the stars, and the countless worlds.
And we have measured their distances and weighed them and discovered their substances.
We've created wings for the air,
And keels for the water.
and horses of iron for the earth.
We have lengthened your vision 1,000,000 times.
And the hearing you gave us 1,000,000 times.
We have leaped over speech with space,
Taken fire out of the air for light.
and built great cities, and bored through hills and bridged majestic waters.
We have written the Iliad and Hamlet.
We've explored your mysteries and searched for you without ceasing.
And found you again after losing you in hours of weariness.
And we asked you, how would you like to create a sun? And the next day,
have the worms slipping in and out between your fingers.
Between your fingers.
Elijah Browning.
I was among multitudes of children, dancing at the foot of a mountain. A breeze blew out of the east and swept them as leaves, driving some up the slopes. All was changed. Here were flying lights and mystic moons and dream music. A cloud fell upon us. When it lifted, all was changed. I was now amid multitudes who were wrangling. Then a figure in shimmering gold, and one with a trumpet and one with a scepter, stood before me. They mocked me and danced a rigadoon and vanished. All was changed again. Out of a bower of poppies, a woman bared her breasts and lifted her open mouth to mine. I kissed her. The taste of her lips was like salt. She left blood on my lips. I fell, exhausted. I rose and ascended higher, but a mist as from an iceberg clouded my steps. I was cold and in pain. Then the sun streamed on me again, and I saw the mists below me, hiding all below them. And I, bent over my stuff, knew myself silhouetted against the snow, and above me was the soundless air pierced by a cone of ice, over which hung a solitary star. A shudder of ecstasy, a shudder of fear ran through me, but I could not return to the slopes. Nay, I wished not to return, for the spent waves of the symphony of freedom lapped the ethereal cliffs about me. Therefore, I climbed to the pinnacle. I flung away my stuff. I touched that star with my outstretched hand. I vanished, utterly. For the mountain delivers to infinite truth whosoever touches the star.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is poet.
Seeds in a dry pod. Tick, tick, tick. Tick, tick, tick. Lights in a quarrel. Faint iambs and the full breeze wakens. The pine tree is a symphony thereof. Triolets, villanelles, rondelles, rondos, ballads by the score, the same old thought. The snows and roses of yesterday are vanished, and what is love but a rose that fades? Life all around me here in the village. Tragedy, comedy, valor and truth, courage, constancy, heroism, failure, all in the loom. Oh, what patterns. Woodlands, meadows, streams, rivers. Blind to all of it, all my life long. Triolets, villanelles, rondelles, rondos, seeds in a dry pod. Tick, 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 tick. Little iambics. While Homer and Whitman roared in the pines.
I think I'll sleep. There is no sweeter thing, no fate more blessed than to sleep. Dear world, I pass you like an orange to a child. I can no more with you. Do what you will. Dip out the optician.
What do you see now? Globes of red, yellow, purple.
Just a moment. And now?
My father and mother and sisters.
Yes. And now?
Knights in arms, beautiful women, kind faces.
Try this.
A field of grain. A city.
Very good. And now?
A young woman with angels bending over her.
A heavier lens. And now?
Many women with bright eyes and opened lips.
Try this.
Just a goblet on a table.
I see. Try this lens.
Just open space. I see nothing in particular.
Well, and now?
Pine trees. A lake. A summer sky.
That's better. And now?
A book.
Read a page for me.
I can't. My eyes are carried beyond the page.
Try this lens.
Oh. Depths of air.
Excellent. And now?
Light, just light.
Making
everything below it a toy world.
Very good. We'll make the glasses accordingly.
Spoon River.
But once having left,
You can never return.
there's no going back.
There is only the yearn.
You are haunted.
You're hunted.
Wherever you roam.
Spoon River.
Spoon River.
Is calling you home, for the river is tired.
And it flows toward the sea.
And in leaving its banks,
You are free.
You are free.
but you are haunted.
You're hunted.
Wherever you roam.
Spoon River. Spoon River is calling you home. Isn't it grand, boys, to be bloody well dead? So let's not have a sniffle. Let's have a bloody good cry. And always remember, the longer you live, the sooner you'll bloody well die. Look at the mourners, bloody great hypocrites. Isn't it grand, boys?